everyone is intuitive. Welcome to today's episode on Human Design Alchemy. I'm Marianne, and I am definitely intuitive. So how can I say that? Well, I know it's true because I can see it just by looking at my human design chart. So what about you? Do you find yourself doubting your intuitive abilities? Do you, kind of struggle to see yourself as intuitive or even psychic? Well, you're definitely not alone there. This was actually my struggle for many, many, many years. And it was probably a struggle that I hid a little bit because, I was sort of in a, I suppose, social group where intuitiveness was not really seen as being a good thing. And, it was kind of, no, that doesn't make sense. Nobody can be intuitive was kind of the theme that went through. But, I also had other things that happened as well. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So I really only came to identify as intuitive, deeply intuitive, when I discovered all of the many different places within my human design that reveal that intuitiveness. So today I'm actually going to discuss just a few of the places, because if it was more than just a few, then I would probably be having a very, very long video. But I'm going to talk about a few of the places where you can actually find out about some of your intuitiveness. Now, the place I'm going to start first is actually with your authority. So I want you to start to see your authority as your most important intuitive gift. So this is because essentially it is the strongest intuition that you have. It comes through your body to give you the sense of what's right or wrong for you, depending on how your authority actually works. And ultimately, that decision about something comes through and sits in your body. All right. So this could be emotional, it could be instinctual, or it could be some other kind of sensation that comes through your body. So even those people who have outer authorities, which essentially means that the information they need to arrive at a decision starts externally to them, and it then comes into their body. So even with that authority, there's going to be a point at which there will be a sensation in your body that says, this is correct for me, or this is not correct for me. All right. So when you tune into your authority, you're not only allowing yourself to, tune in to make sure that your decisions are correct, but it means that you're essentially embracing your intuition. So what is your authority actually there for? So remember, it's actually the partner to your strategy, which is the very first part, probably the most important part, because without that, we won't know what we need to make decisions about. So the strategy comes first. So first of all, you need some kind of input. All right. So as I've said before, I am a projector. So my strategy is to wait for recognition and wait for invitations. And when I follow my strategy, input, opportunities begin to flow towards me, so I can then make the right decision about the opportunity. So let's say, for example, I have someone reach out and ask me to give a talk about human design. This is my invitation, which also requires that the person reaching out sees me, in other words, recognizes me as having some kind of expertise in human design. Now, at this point, I could leap right in and say, yes, I'm going to do it. Logically, it sounds like it would be a really good move, especially in terms of building my profile as a human design expert. and as a way to promote my business. But the question becomes, does my authority actually agree with that? Now, I have spoken a little bit about having a self-projected authority. Now, this is authority that essentially sits within the chest. And, I have to tap into that to see whether this opportunity is actually going to be correct for me. So often I will get an immediate pull or sensation or something happening within that part of my body that shows me that this is, yes, I need to do this. If it's a no, then it tends to be not so much a sensation of, don't do it. It's just almost like my authority is asleep. Sometimes, though, there'll be, if I decide to do something without checking with my authority, there will be this sensation that's almost like disgust about doing that particular thing. Doesn't happen all the time, but there's definitely this sensation of, yes, I should be doing this, sort of like a pull, just a knowingness almost. All right. So that's all intuitive kind of stuff. It goes and overrides what logic says should be happening. All right. Now, with some bigger decisions, sometimes I have to wait a little bit, maybe speak to someone, write about it, do a few other things around the decision before there is certainty within me. So it works in a couple of different ways. It can be instantaneous, it can be more long-term. So it's a bit of a funny kind of authority, because usually they either work in the moment or fairly close to in the moment, or by waiting. All right, mine, so I have to really connect into it to know which one it is and what's actually happening. All right, so my intuition is essentially my authority. All right, it's going to guide me towards something that I can't consciously know is correct or not. All right, I might mentally go, yeah, this is something I should be doing, but that's often not correct. And I certainly can't go to someone else and go, oh, what would you do? Because that's not me. All right. So your authority is really the strongest intuition that you have. It's this deep body knowingness. So you really need to learn to work with that and recognize that. Otherwise, you might miss it, particularly if you have like sacral authority, splenic authority that really are in the now moment. All right, so speaking of splenic authority, basically I know that everyone is intuitive, not only because they've got an authority, but because you've also got a spleen center. So whether your spleen center is defined or undefined, it is the center of intuition within your energetic body. All right, so this is basically the triangular shape that's found on the left side of your body graph. And this one is all about survival instincts. So that's the kind of intuition essentially that it's about. It's survival. This is probably the oldest instinctual part of us. So if you have the triangle colored in, it means that you will have access to consistent and reliable intuition. Now, the type of intuition that you will have this consistent and reliable access to will actually depend on what gates, but particularly what channels you have coming from the spleen center to somewhere else in your body graph, in the case of a channel, or pointing towards somewhere else in the place of a gate. And each of those gates has a particular type of intuitive energy. So, for example, it might be the energy of knowingness. So you just know something and you can't explain it. It could be, an intuitive sense of what's going to be coming in the future, and so on. So there's a whole range of different specific intuitive gifts that can come through there. So if you think about all the clairs, they pretty much come through the spleen. Now, if the triangle is not coloured in, it doesn't mean that you are not intuitive. In fact, it means that you are super intuitive because you are taking in the energy from all of those people who have this center defined. And there's probably about close to 50% of people who actually do have this defined. So you're taking in their intuitive energy. Now remember, when we take something in through an undefined center, we amplify it. So for that time, we have access to supercharged intuition. Now, remember, when we've got it undefined, there's no consistency there. So perhaps a little bit of a story around this. So my spleen is undefined. Basically, if I'm self-projected, I can't have any definition below the G center in my design. So this is undefined in me. And often people who have this undefined really, really feel like they are not very intuitive at all. And a lot of this can come from the inconsistency in their intuition. And this is definitely an area where, I really felt at different times as though, oh, yes, I'm intuitive. Look at that. I got this intuitive hit. And then I go to try and do it in the same way the next day, and it's not there. So it's like, oh, okay, I was just fooling myself then. It was all in my mind. All right. But that's not the case. So you're either going to have consistent, reliable, but limited to what's in your design intuition, all right, from a defined center, or you're going to have unlimited access to intuition that may come in many different forms. Now, most likely it's going to relate to any gates that you have defined within your undefined spleen or activated. In other words, they're colored in red. But you can get other things as well. So I definitely know this, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So everyone is intuitive because you have access to your spleen in some form or another, either through your own gift of having a defined spleen or through the magic of being able to access the energy of other people's defined spleens. All right. Now, the next place that you're going to be able to get your intuition from is a little bit broader. So I can't go into all of the specifics. If you want to get some specifics, wait for the offer at the bottom. Let me just say that I do a written report on your intuitive gifts, and it's here at the specific gates and channels that I dive into some fairly specific stuff. So basically, the gates and the channels that are connected to the spleen all have, as I've said, these particular types of intuitive gifts connected to them. For example, gate 57 is actually called the gate of intuition, and it has the strongest intuitive or psychic giftedness within human design. This doesn't mean to say that if you don't have this, you're not intuitive. So the gift here is very sort of vibrational and sound connected. So you would call this clairaudience if you've got gate 57, but it may show up in a connection to, sort of vibrations, not specifically voices, but it can be both. So each of the 7 gates in the spleen has its own particular intuitive gifts, which I've already said. So there are 7 channels that go from the spleen to the other centers. And so some go down to the root, go to the sacral, go to the G center or the ID center, and some go to the will or the ego center. And some go to the throat. All right, so each of these channels has a very particular type of intuitive energy. So even though the spleen is the most intuitive center, there are many other gates and channels that have psychic or intuitive abilities. I won't go so far as to say every gate does, but I almost could. Like, my investigations into this point to the fact that, you know, most gates have something that's within the intuitive world that's connected to it. So let me give you an example. I've got gate 26, which is in the ego/will/heart center. I tend to call it the will center, but that's just my point of reference for how I view this center. Now, gate 26 points down towards the spleen, but I don't actually have a channel going, you know, between those 2 centers. So in other words, it's an activated gate in an undefined center pointing towards an undefined center. But even so, the intuitiveness within gate 26 is around the intuitive ability of smell. So in particular situations, so once again, not consistently, I can absolutely smell when something is off. This is at an energetic level. No, not open up the fridge and sniff the milk and go, ooh, this is off. No, this is like, I almost get, I don't know what would say, like ding, ding, ding type thing. If I'm, say, for example, watching someone speaking on TV and they're not being honest. Now, I thought this was me just being, you know, a bit judgy and that kind of thing. But as I've become aware of this, and, you know, I sort of have something come up on TV and I just get this, you know, kind of ding, 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 ding sensation. Go, you're not being honest. Now, if it's connected to, you know, like a legal case or something, every time I've had that sensation, so remember, inconsistent, the person has actually been found guilty of whatever it was that they were charged with. Sometimes I've had the sensation when it's, you know, like people talking about a loved one going missing. There's something dodgy there. And then later on, they're arrested for the disappearance of this person. So, you know, it's kind of like this, supposed to be this sense of smell. And I do have a very strong sense of smell, and I am very much drawn to essential oils and fragrant plants, and you know, I need to have the right kinds of physical smells in my environment, definitely. But there's also this other thing that's like sniffing out dishonesty. You know, I can smell a lie, particularly if I've got, you know, the energetic activation happening, you know, through transits or beings with someone who's got the center activated. So some interesting ways that can happen. Ooh, probably also some things around the asteroids, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. So how the asteroids and their position can actually be activating things as well. All right, so that's just a little sniff of some ways that, you know, you might be intuitive. Now, there are a number of other gates that have all different sorts of things. So you might be able to, you know, sense into the physical wellness of someone. You might be able to actually connect with animals. You might be able to connect with plants. You might be able to, you know, sense you know, sort of those things beyond the veil, so to speak. So there's a whole lot of different things. So every person has different gates, and you know, most people, except for the reflectors, also have at least one channel in their design. And within all of these places, there are intuitive gifts. So I can say without a doubt, everyone is intuitive. Everyone has an authority. Everyone has a spleen. Every person will have some kind of gates that are activated. All right. All of these are a source of intuition. Your job is to see how that can actually be recognized within you, accepted within you, and also, you know, how can you accept the inconsistencies as well if you've got an undefined spleen, or if you've got intuitive gates in other areas that are undefined. All right. So the human design tells me that all humans are intuitive, and human design shows me how all humans are intuitive, you know, where that actually comes from. So it's pretty cool. Now, as I've already kind of mentioned, if you want to know more, you want to see where it is that you're intuitive, how it is that you're intuitive, you can actually order an Intuitive Gifts Human Design reading. You can see the link below, and you will receive a fully personalized written report that details all the kinds of intuitiveness that's strongest in you and where that is actually located through your human design. You'll also get lots of information about what that intuitiveness might be like so that you can recognize it within yourself. Now, if you want to know more about my thoughts and ideas on human design, then make sure you subscribe to this channel. You can also hit the bell so that you're notified when new videos become available. And I'd just like to thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you join me again next time. So bye for now.